What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 14th episode of the Control Freak podcast. I am your host, Alex Blackard, or at Less Alex on Twitter. We are proudly sponsored by Team Solitary Pro. Make sure to go check them out. This is the only Magic the Gathering podcast devoted to all things Control in the modern format. Today, we are having a bit of a different episode. This is a Solitary Spotlight. Tony Johnson. Tony, how you doing today?
Not too bad. How are you doing, Alex?
Oh, pretty good, man. Pretty good. So this week's episode, we are going to kind of just delve into Tony's, the reason he started playing, his favorite cards, things like that, and then, of course, go over some of his more recent accomplishments. But as always, if you enjoy the podcast, make sure to go on over to Apple Podcasts, give me a 5-star review, say a couple of kind words about the podcast. It goes so far with helping out all the analytics on there. And, of course, I'm always on Twitch, Twitter, all those things, and it goes straight to YouTube, so thanks for watching. And if you dig it, make sure to follow and subscribe. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So, let's dive into your background, kind of your when you ignited your spark, if you will.
Yeah.
When did you start playing?
I started playing back in RTR Gate Crash around that time.
Good set.
I think a couple buddies of mine bought some packs from a Hastings like down the street, and they're like, "Hey, we should dick around with these." And I started buying a lot of cards and building a lot of weird, strange brews, and
Sure.
And it sort of took off from there.
Awesome. So you said RTR, so that was a pretty fun format. I mean, obviously all the time. Anytime we go to Ravnica, it's a blast in Standard usually. And they're always very popular sets too. What was your favorite card in that format?
It would have to be a tie between Deathrite Shaman and Abrupt Decay.
Okay, so Golgari, that kind of goes against what you currently play, but we'll get to that. So currently, what's your favorite card?
My favorite card of all time is kind of hilarious.
Oh boy.
It's kind of a meme card. It's Phyrexian Obliterator.
Oh, okay. That card's sweet though. So for those that don't know, could you tell the listeners and the viewers what that does?
So it's 4 black, so 4 CMC, all black, super hard to cast.
Yeah.
It's a 5/5 trampler that whenever a source of a player deals damage to that to that creature, that player has to sacrifice that many permanents. So if I would just love the fact I just play my Urborg on turn 4 and just slam an Obliterator, and my opponent's bolt, and I was like, oh, congratulations, you just annihilated yourself.
Yeah. It's got kind of like a weird Annihilator built in, right? And it's the opposite of Phyrexian Negator, right? It's like the opposite of that?
Yeah,
I believe so.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Every time I would go to FNM, I would play some hot spike deck, something that was hot in the format at the moment. And then everybody start complaining. I was like, I'll give you something to complain about. I'll just shove Uvenwald Tracker in my deck and make you fight Phyrexian Obliterators all day.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And then what is your favorite deck currently? What are you jamming right now? If you were to go to a big tournament, what would you sleeve up?
Currently, despite some chatter of it being less good, I don't believe it a single bit. I think that it'd have to be Blue Eye Control. Go figure.
Nice. But it's almost like this is the Control Freak podcast, right?
It's so strange. It's like it was set up or something.
Right.
But Blue Eye Control has definitely been the deck that I've had the most success with, and it's just a really fun deck and a lot of interesting lines that reward pretty skilled players and patience.
Definitely.
the reason why I initially started playing Blue Eye Control is that it kind of pandered to my weaknesses as a control player, and so I wasn't like all about that combat math or
Yeah,
you
so I was
know
going
I
to
was just like
ask
whatever,
what
skill
would
your stuff.
that kind of brings up the question, what do you think is your biggest weakness as a Magic player? Something you'd like to improve?
My biggest weakness, my biggest weakness, strangely enough, used to be playing in a timely fashion.
Sure.
But since playing Blue Eye Control, it's sort of a trial by fire.
Yeah.
So I've definitely increased my play speed. My weakness currently, I wouldn't say that time is my weakness anymore. Playing at a reasonable pace, I think that my weakness now is probably decks that involve a lot of complex combats.
Sure.
I
So,
was always
for example,
I
what's something
was
in
always
the
drawn to decks that pander to that, like Tron, things like that, where you
yeah.
just play a big fatty and you're just like, whatever you do, you deal with it. I don't have to deal with this, you know.
Right. And what in the current meta of Modern do you think has like a bunch of complex math, combat math? Like if you had to think
The
of
deck
one.
that I think has definitely Hardened Scales Affinity. That
Yeah.
deck is a nightmare to figure out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, they've got so many lines. Sometimes
I have
though.
a friend.
Oh, go on.
Sorry,
No, no, go
I
on.
have a friend that plays the deck. His name's Brennan Keithline. He's from the Missouri, Columbia area, Springfield, and shout out to him. He was big. He's a big Hardened Scales player, and we were talking on the car ride up to Louisville last season, I believe, and he was talking a lot about. Yeah, it's so weird. Like I asked him about how he felt about Hardened Scales. He's like, yeah, the deck is trash. And I was like, really? Like, and he's just like, yeah, you just play a pile of trash and then you just throw it at your opponent's face.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing with blue white though, and that deck is sometimes all you need is a Path to Exile. I had a guy try and go off on turn 3 just by sacrificing everything to a Ink Moth, and then he made me have it, and guess what? I had it. So
Yeah. And they're like, okay, fair.
yeah, yeah. Um, so awesome. Blue Eye Control is your favorite deck. Your favorite card of all time is Phyrexian Obliterator, and Return to Ravnica is when you started. So awesome stuff. What are to this point, your most notable Magic the Gathering accomplishments? And that could be, yeah, you know what that could be.
Yeah, it could be. Beginning last November, I started really doing well. I started playing Blue Eye Control pretty religiously back when they unbanned Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah.
That's really when I picked up the deck, and I started playing it a little bit before when we were doing cute things like Ojudai's Command, or like Ojudai, and like untapping it with like Manamo and goofy shit like that. But and then when they unbanned Jace the Mind Sculptor, it was kind of a crossroads for me because my first deck my first pet deck was always Jund, like Green Black X decks.
Yeah.
And so they unbanned Jace the Mind Sculptor and Bloodbraid Elf at the same time. So I was like, wow, this is it's like, this is way too much to figure out.
You're like torn between your two loves, basically.
Yeah, and so I sleeved up some Terminuses, and I took it to a PPTQ in Kansas, and I just swept clean sweep, first place finish at that.
Nice.
And
first time with the deck, or
first time ever sleeping up the deck. I just mop everybody at this event. It was like a 9-round PPTQ.
Oh wow.
I played Cruckland Ironworks in the quarterfinals, and I think it was like Infect in the semis and Affinity in the finals. And the Affinity player just scooped to a Stony Silence, which was pretty sweet. It was like game 3. I was like, Stony Silence is like, yeah, you got it. I was like, wow, okay. But then I think last March, I got 12th at SCG Baltimore as a team open.
Okay.
I was the modern seed.
What'd you play there?
I was playing, huh?
I said, what'd you play at that tournament?
Um,
Oh
I was
boy,
playing a pile,
some
a red
memes.
green Eldrazi Tron pile, or
Okay.
Eldrazi, just red green Eldrazi. Remember that deck
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
Greg
With
played?
Phyrexian Obligator is the name of the card. You can like steal their thing, and
Oh
is that the right
yeah,
deck? Is that
yeah. That card was
yeah.
spicy. I played an
Oh yeah.
Endearing Ideal deck, and he had this like weird board state where he Endearing Idealed for Starfield mix, and he had like Ruined Halo naming my Reality Smasher, and I had like he just had a couple of, like a ley line. So still interesting text on Starfield is that it counts how many. I'm not sure exactly on the text at this point, but it allows all the enchantments are creatures with power and toughness equal to their converted mana
Equal to
cost.
their mana cost. Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah,
card's
and
wild.
I peeled. I remember peeling Eldrazi Obligator and stealing a Ruined Halo and killing him.
Oh, that's hot.
I was like, that's really cool. I had to call a judge. I was like, does this really work? I don't know,
Awesome.
but so I got 12th with that with former with a real good buddy of mine, Chris Homan. Shout out. He's a real popular humans player that just recently top aided a Grand Prix with
Sure.
humans in the Hogak Menace meta.
Yes.
Um,
Which by the time this is out into the world, I'm assuming Hogak will be banned. We'll get into that a little bit later, but
yeah, yeah.
continue.
I had a in my teammate on the Legacy seat was an absolute monster. Former Pro Tour winner David Scharfman.
Oh,
Shout
yeah.
out. That guy is an absolute monster. So last season was kind of a really big breakout season for me. I won like three. I think I won three IQs.
Oh wow.
And then
SCG
I
IQs?
won a PPTQ.
Okay.
I top aided the RPTQ that followed the modern PPTQ with Jeskai control.
Nice.
Uh,
That deck was gas back then too.
oh yeah. Benjamin Nikolic and I were talking heavily on some Jeskai lists that he was running that weekend, and I got it. It was probably one of the better accomplishments and probably the most crushing losses of my career.
Oh sure.
As I came one win away from the Pro Tour, and I got crushed by Tron in the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Jeskai is real rough against Tron.
Yeah, it just I got him to 3, and then he was I was trying to draw bolts and holding up my fetch land so he couldn't hit all my red sources out of my deck, and then he waited for me to draw a bolt so he can like slow roll this Nature's Claim, and I was like, cool, you're fun,
Yeah.
So
Tron players are always fun, right?
Yeah, they're always mean. They're always trolling. But big respect for that guy. I'm drawing a blank on his name at this time.
Sure.
But and then last year in the Missouri area, there was a regional. Magelings held a regional championship in Columbia, and I got top 4 in that event. It was like something north of 230 players, 9 rounds of Swiss.
Wow.
Went undefeated throughout the Swiss. And then I got crushed in the semis too. You guessed it, Tron again.
What were you playing that time around?
I was playing Blue White Miracles at that point.
Okay, so after Jason Mind Sculptor had been unbanned and everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Did you? So side note, did you see that Ben Nikolic was playing Hogak at the Open?
Yeah, what a traitor.
Yeah, I felt so betrayed.
I love Ben. I love Ben. He's a good guy, but he sees the writing on the wall with this deck. And I would like to lie and say that Jeskai Control has a reasonable position at this point, but there's just better versions of his deck right now.
Sure.
And I think that Ben is evolving as a player because he realizes that you just can't play your pet deck every tournament.
Right.
And
Still top 10 anime betrayals of all time. That's gotta be
Yeah.
ranked right up there. So
Yeah, well, what's really funny is I think I brought him over the dark side. Remember when Rock was really popular
yes.
recently?
Yeah, a couple months ago.
When it got shout out to Austin Collins. He took down SCG Cleveland, I believe, with Is It Phoenix, and he was playing. He played against a rock opponent, and I think he just barely squeaked a win out of that one. But it was around that time when I was speaking to Benjamin Nikolic about the position of his control deck, and he was like, "Oh, I got this IQ. I might play a different deck." And I was like, "Dude, play Rock."
Yeah.
And he did, and he did really well with it. He top 8 that event with it. So I was partially to blame for that, I think.
You're the man behind the curtain.
I was the catalyst to his madness.
Yeah. Awesome. So a bunch. Any more? Any other notable finishes, or does that kind of round it
after
out?
After the regional, I top 32'd a Modern Classic.
Okay.
With
what deck?
With Blue Eye Control. I believe this was before Modern Horizons, but after War of the Spark came out.
Sure.
So the
Before
Narsets
Hogak,
and
but
stuff.
after Narset and Teferi, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was whenever everybody thought Tron was still a bad matchup for Blue White, which I crushed 2 Tron players in that classic.
Yeah.
And Force of Negation only made that matchup even better. So.
Oh yeah.
I got rolled. I had a really interesting line in that matchup. It was a Scape Shift matchup, like the one for top 16, I believe. I lost because I failed to see a line. I guess it's a line that people see a lot in Legacy. Is
Sure.
where I was facing down double Scape Shift, and I had a Field of Ruin and a Surgical Extraction and a Counterspell.
Okay.
So I had to find a way. To hold priority upon casting of the first Scape Shift, and then once the first Scape Shift resolved, you counter it, and then you can respond to your own Field of Ruin. So they cast Scape Shift, right, and then you can. I believe how it works is you Field of Ruin, and you hold priority. When you cast when you counter the Scape Shift,
Sure.
and in response to your own Field of Ruin activation, you can Surgical the Scape Shift.
Okay.
So that's a way to pass priority to yourself. I believe that's how that worked.
It's like an
Paul
alley-oop to
Muller.
yourself.
Yeah, Paul Muller was behind me So I found a weird but alternate line. That I thought was going to work. It didn't end up working out very well. I Surgical Extracted Stomping Grounds in response to Escape Shift because I noticed he had no Stomping Grounds in play.
Yeah.
And I did the math because I used to play Valakut way back when, and I counted how many mountains he had, and I was like, okay, well, 13 mountains is about standard for Escape Shift. And he was playing 15 mountains, and he's playing the wrong number of not really the wrong number, but
Sure,
not
just
a full
different
force
number,
set of
right.
Stomping Grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I lost by 1 mountain. That was pretty crushing.
Yeah. Oh man, that's got to be pretty rough.
But you live and you learn. And then this past weekend, I did pretty well at the MCQ.
Yes.
At Moonbase Market.
Yeah, so there was an MCQ at Moonbase Market in St. Louis, Missouri. I happened to be commentating, and you were on camera 3 times, and I believe you won all 3 of them, right?
Yeah. Won all 3.
I will put that in the show notes below, so you can all check out the coverage of that. There was some pretty sweet plays. Do you want to talk about that one mentor play? Because that was pretty insane. If you want to talk about that,
yeah.
in turns.
Yeah, so I was in turns. So it was game 3. I was playing against Is It Breach. It was like you guys remember the Is It Breach deck that kind of sprung a leak into Modern briefly and then died.
And
it was looting Is It Charm, like Remand deck that their finisher was just
to kind of set the stage. I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to let the listeners know that both of you were 4-1. So this was just a pure winning in. So continue. I just wanted to set the stage for the listeners.
Oh yeah, to kind of get the suspense going.
It was wild. It
was a real squeaker. So it's game 3. We split a piece. I guess we could talk about leading up to game 3 was I started stumbling on land drops. I believe I could have cut the game out in time if I had not stumbled so badly on land drops in the early game.
Yeah.
I think I was on 3 lands for like 5 to 6 turns.
Yeah, no doubt. Or like, yeah, continue. But you did miss several land drops.
I missed I think I missed land drop for 3 consecutive turns. Missed my 4th land drop. So I guess the game really started shifting whenever he tried to breach me at the end of my turn, and I Vendilion clicked him in response to deny him the Emrakul in his hand. And then he like drew the top card of his deck, and I was like, "Oh, did you peel another one?" He's like, "No."
But that's what we were talking about too in the booth. We were like, "Oh my god, if he plays,
I was like, I'm gonna be so tilted if he just like rips another one and But I'm glad he had only one in his hand too. That was the only way that line actually worked.
Sure.
So it's fortunate for me.
If you had a second Emrakul, you're just dead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, all right, cool. That's probably just game over at that point if that happened. And fast forward, I start putting the sleeper hold on it. I got all 4. I think I had all 4 planeswalkers in play. At the time, I had Teferi Time Raveler, Teferi Hero of Dominaria, a Jace the Mind Sculptor on like 9 loyalty.
He was swole.
I was trying to figure out how to. In the middle of the game, it took me a long time. As you said, it was like a couple leading up to the final turn of the game.
Yeah.
It took me a long time because I was trying to understand. Because I had some information on what his hand probably looked like because he was Serum Vision scrying to the top and I was Fate Sealing. So there's a couple items that I knew about, especially from the Vendilion click earlier in the game. So I was trying to calculate how I needed to ult this Jace to kill him.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, he's a control deck first of all, so he's got 3 or 4 cards in hand, so I'm not going to be able to kill him this way. So then I had to switch gears. So I think it was turn 2 of turns. I was going to get turn 2 and turn 4 of the turn cycle.
Yeah.
Turn 2 of turns, I just started drawing a bunch of cards. I was like, I'm just gonna have to hat trick a Monastery Mentor.
Yeah.
So I think it was on one of my last draws, like on an opt I found off of his Jace Serum Visions and the Teferi Plus. I found a Mentor, like pure clean off the top, and I just slam it. And then I play a land, which was pretty crucial because it allowed me to keep up Cryptic Command with the Teferi on tap triggers.
Yeah.
So he passed turn. I passed turn to him. He's turn 3. So he's going to get 2 more combat turns if I can't finish him the following turn.
Yeah, and Tony's opponent here was at 14 life. So pretty healthy life total.
He's at 14 life going into my final turn. So his turn 3, he casts a Snapcaster Mage, assumingly to target a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
To try to kill the Mentor. I probably could have blanked the Mentor. I probably could have kept the Mentor from dying. But I knew that I would then have to deal with 2 blockers, and at the time I didn't have any Path to Exiles in my hand, so I just decided to purely just cut it off and just hard counter the Snapcaster Mage with Cryptic Command.
Yep.
And redraw. And if he hadn't played anything, I was probably just going to bounce a land with the Cryptic Command because I just really needed another monk. I really needed a monk token to start without Summoning Sickness to start the following turn, last turn. And so, fortunately for me, he didn't try. He had Through the Breach and Emrakul in his hand, but he knew that I had Force of Negation, and he knew that I have Teferi Time Raveler. So there's a lot of no good permission. I think I had him in a really good lock because once I get him in a position where he can't cast the Through the Breach at instant speed, that's a pretty big advantage for me.
Oh yeah. Your
So
win
then I
condition
untap
you
his turn
can't
4.
cast. That's pretty good.
Yeah, win condition. Yeah. So I untap. It's turn 4 of turns. My opponent's at 14 life. I'm at 17. I have a colonnade, I believe, in play.
You did have,
and I think upwards of 8 to 9 lands ish. I draw I think I draw the opt for the turn, which is pretty fortunate. If I remember correctly. So it took me a good minute to count all my lands and to figure out the hypergeometrics as to like how I'm going to finish this turn, how I'm going to finish this game, and if there's a possibility. And I knew that it involved surgical extraction. I hadn't drawn either one yet. I left both of them in because I figured if I can win a battle over through the breach and I can counter through the breach, then there's virtually no way he can end the game in a feasible manner.
Yeah.
If I can surgical go through the breach. So that's why I left the Teferi Time Raveler in, so I didn't have to have any complicated battles over that. And so the beginning of the turn, I'm trying to figure out which string of spells that I need to play.
You went into the tank pretty hard, rightfully so. Time was already called. You had all the time in the world, basically. But
yeah, and I had the judge in my ear, like, you need to make plays, and
Sure.
and there was like 50 people around the table.
There were several. There were like 10. Yeah.
A lot of people were just shaking their head, like, there's just no way this is gonna happen. And so I opt and I get my counters, and then I think for a little while longer. I brainstorm with Jace, and I uptick with Teferi. Hero of Dominaria. And then I find a fetch land. Lets me chip away at that second Jace that I peeled that wasn't so hot.
Yeah.
So I kind of had it all. I kind of had all the tricks. I was looking at 10 to 15 cards. So I felt pretty confident that I could get what I needed. I just needed to not sequence them improperly.
Correct. Yeah.
You noticed the turn before that I didn't. That I ticked down on Teferi Time Raveler to just draw a card.
Yeah.
Because I kind of knew at that point that was my out, was to just see as many cards as possible.
Sure.
And so we have the opt, so that's spell 1. So we have a Prowess trigger on a mentor token and the Monastery Mentor itself. The Narset, I play a Narset and tick down, peel Surgical Extraction. And that was a pretty spicy feeling. I was like, okay, we can do this, I think. And I slam Surgical Extraction into my hand, and I cast Surgical on a Snapcaster Mage, I believe.
Yeah, it was Snapcaster.
That was spell 3, and then he had a Snapcaster Mage on blocking duty.
Yep.
And then I cast a Path to Exile, held priority, targeting his Snapcaster Mage, and then I pathed again, and then for extra flair, I think it might have been necessary, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
We'll have to go back and look. If the listeners want to go back and watch, I'll definitely leave that link down in the show notes. But I thought it was overkill, but you might be right. It was so close.
Yeah.
And like I said,
I think
earlier,
it was 13 to 15. I think it was the difference between 13 damage and 15 damage, I believe.
So in that case,
but I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
I was just trying to cast as many spells as possible and see what happened. But
yeah. So like whenever you drew that surgical, that's when it clicked in my head that I was like, oh my god, he's actually going to at least have a shot to do this. Because I think after you drew the opt, then you activated Brainstorm, and that's when you found the paths. Because I don't think you had the paths in your hand, right?
I didn't even have the paths either. I had quite a lot to find. I think I had the turn prior. I had like a Narset, a Dovin's Veto, a Force Negation, a Cryptic.
Yeah. And
maybe one of the 2 paths. I don't remember.
Yeah. Once you found that surgical, though, I was like, okay, game on. This is happening. So
yeah, people were losing their minds when I dealt 15 damage.
Twitch chat went crazy. All the people around were like in shock. People were like talking about it. Basically, the whole tournament after that. So yeah,
it honestly felt like my tournament at that point. I felt I was pretty high on that.
It was very, very dope for sure. Um, yeah,
It's definitely one to remember for sure.
yeah. So then you made top eight, which of course awesome, top eight of an MCQ. What did you end up facing down in the top eight that ended up bumping you?
So I got scape shifted.
Yeah.
I played against Scape Shift, and the guy that beat me ended up taking down the whole thing.
Yeah, shout out to Jordan Paultrock. That is
Yeah, that
huge
is a
thing.
real guy right there. Shout out to him. He's quite the player.
Foiled out. He plays that deck like nobody's business too, man. He
I was foiled out. It was
yeah.
like blinding my eyes.
Right.
And so we got deck lists for the tournament or for the top eight.
Sure.
So we got to look and see what our opponents' lists were. And I just remember looking at his list and going, "What the hell is going on?" Like,
did he have some spicy?
he was
photos?
so prepared.
Oh,
He was
sure.
so prepared for the blue-white matchup.
Oh wow.
He had two main deck Umbali Acid Moss, which that card is really good.
That's pretty good.
The reason why that card's really good is because game one, my deck is heavily reliant on cryptic commands.
Were you playing
And so
three?
they
You
have
playing
these
three,
plays where
weren't
they
you?
go turn. Huh?
You were playing 3 cryptics, right?
Yeah, I was playing 3 cryptics
Okay.
in the main. So it's kind of like this card that you don't really want to counter because you want to save this negate for the escape shift that's going to kill you later, but at the same time it's going to take you down a land and you know your opponent's going to untap with 5 or 6 mana
Yeah.
the following turn, and my deck at the time was pretty slim on lands
24,
and
right?
cantrips. 24 and 4 ops were the package, and I like to relate, like most blue-eye players, I like to relate the number of land drops to the number of cantrips. So if you have 23 lands and you have 8 to 9 cantrips, that kind of correlates. But if you have 24 lands and 4 cantrips, there's there's a small consistency issue there. But
Sure.
I think that we're just trying to be greedy enough to where 25 lands is just the 5th land has to be a utility, I believe. So, but I think a lot of people are getting away with 24 lands because we have so much early pressure now. We have a lot of 3 mana planeswalkers now.
Yeah.
Whereas before we were just doing nothing on turn 3, like Detention Sphere was like our hot play.
Is Detention Sphere or bust, really?
Yeah, like it was just super laughable for us for a little while. And so I think that he had 2 Acid Moss, the full package of Scape Shift, the full package of Prime Time, the full package of Valakut. So he had 4 Valakuts, the full 4 across the board, which some Scape Shift decks choose to be a little leaner, playing 3, because a lot of time 3 is enough, especially if your opponents aren't messing with your lands, not Fulminator maging, and a lot of times they don't have to show you Scape Shift till they kill you.
Yeah.
Having 3 definitely helps that plan, because when you draw 1, it's definitely a liability to play it, especially post board. So he definitely had a lot more consistency in his deck, prepared for a deck that had a lot of interaction, and field of burn and surgicals in the main deck. So he had a lot of obstacles and hoops to jump through, but he pulled it out. I remember looking at his sideboard and just like totally like throwing up in my mouth, because he had like Carnage Tyrant and the new uncounterable Chandra.
You
of
told
6
me
mana.
that. You told me that after the match. You're like, yeah, he resolved Carnage Tyrant, and it's like,
Yeah, I cut him off of surgical extraction. I cut him off of his Valakut's of surgical extraction, and he just beat my face in with Carney T.
Yeah,
so
that's what
it's just, you can't be right for being wrong at that point. So,
but still, I mean, that was an excellent finish. I mean, you were definitely like that round. Like you said, it was your tournament basically to lose. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for you. But
it definitely felt like that. I was first seed going into the top 8, so I played the 8th seed, and he definitely didn't feel like an 8th seeder. It never does. There's so many good players, especially in the STL community, in the St. Louis area. So I was fortunate. I'm glad that the guy that I had the pleasure of playing got to take it down.
Yeah.
My friend, shout out to Jared Medley. He was on. He's part of my
Humans, right?
part of my play group. He was the humans player.
Yeah.
It was in the finals. He unfortunately got his crushing loss in Game 3 because Valakut just does the Valakut stuff.
Yep.
And
so.
Meddling Mage isn't very good against Valakut triggers, turns out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it didn't go well for him, and a lot of people say that it's almost worse to lose there than to go 0-2 drop. And
Sure. You spend the whole day grinding, and you got your hopes high, and then you just fall short there in the finals. Yeah, I can see that.
Jared, I feel for your brother. He's a good player, so it was nice to see him in the top 8 with me, but he deserved to be there. So
yeah,
it was a pretty diverse top 8 too. It was like I don't think there was any Hogak in it.
Twiddlestorm. There was a dredge deck. There was a dredge deck with Hogaks in it, but no like actual Hogaks.
It was like the more consistent.
Right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so kind of to pivot, unless you had anything else you wanted to add to that tournament.
I just want to add that Twiddlestorm is a real deck.
Yeah, the deck was hot.
That deck is busted. It was my only loss in the Swiss.
Yeah.
That deck really handled me in a way that I really didn't want to be handled.
Yeah. Didn't expect it.
Yeah, and what's sad about it is that I think I sideboarded correctly, and I boarded in. That's where I actually used to play 3 Celestial Purge in my sideboard for this weekend, and I felt like it was the right call, and I backed that up. He was playing that new Raw from War of the Spark.
Yeah.
The one that whenever he cast it,
Storm.
Yeah, and I got to purge that. I got to purge the Healy Sublime Artificer.
Yeah.
So I was answering his win cons, and then I just picked a turn to slam it to Fairy and untap with 3 lands, and that's a turn that I died. So.
Yeah.
I think he played like upwards of 20 spells.
Wow.
That game.
Yep.
It was Lotus Field is a real deal. It is not a joke.
And that'll all be that this entire video, the entire coverage, that is obviously that deck was in the top 8, so it'll be in that video linked below. But yeah, Twiddlestorm.
For anybody listening, that is a real thing now.
Yep. So, but yeah, again, congrats on that top 8. I'm sure you'll be back sooner than you even know it. So,
I hope so. I hope we can do some team tournaments soon together.
Man, I'm excited. I'm excited for it too. But pivoting it into the next topic, which is how you exactly joined Team Solitary Pro. If you want to talk about like the recruitment process or like who reached out to who, be as detailed or as vague as you want. So
so Francesco Amati, he's
friend of the show.
He's a big face. He's a big face in the blue white community. He's also dude. That guy is amazing.
He makes so much content too. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he is one of the smartest dudes I think I've ever met.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And I joined the blue white page, and I started doing really well, and I started sharing my stuff, and I started messaging him and picking his brain about stuff because I noticed he was really avid. Usually those Facebook groups are a total mess.
Oh,
it's just
dude,
disaster.
I'm in a couple of them, and that's the only one that is really productive to me.
Yeah,
right?
It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's all because of Fran.
He keeps it very clean, about the business.
Yeah, it's all because of Fran, and I think that he's a big reason why Blue White has got a following that it is, because he's really the guy that's connecting the players at home, building the deck shop, just one-stop shopping for the Blue White Control deck online, getting in the mail, and really knowing what to do with it from there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really nice place to be at for him. And shout out to him he's also a coach, MTG coach at the Spike Academy.
Yeah.
and that is nothing to scoff at. He is players like Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa and Ellie Cassis. Big shout out to Ellie. He helped me kind of organize my thoughts going into this weekend. He is also a coach on Spike Academy, and he's repped by Face to Face Games. Shout out, go check them out. But yeah, so I was talking to Francesco about just general stuff, and he started picking my brain. And then we started writing together. We wrote that really giant, humongous blue light primer. It was like 20%. It was like 10% me, 90% Fran. But he definitely wanted some collaboration with me, so he let me write a couple things. I'm a big stickler on blue light control having a transformational sideboard plan.
Sure.
And so I wrote a lot about clock pressure, a lot about turning that corner. A lot of these blue light players, when they first venture into the deck, they're like, I just have to have like a billion answers for everything, and then like one creature, one Snapcaster for me. That's all I need. and that's just not an effective way to go about the deck.
Yeah, especially now.
So that's
especially with how Modern looks now.
Yeah, no, you literally can't sit there and twiddle your thumbs. There's too many decks that go over the top of you with so much consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, Tron will just roll you if you can't clock them.
Yep.
And then after a while, we started building our friendship, and then he was asked to sign on to Solitary Pro, and I was really happy for him. He was like, well, I'd like to recommend you. And I said, I think that any team involving Fran is something I want to be a part of.
Absolutely.
And so I took it and ran with it, and it's been great ever since. A lot of support, a lot of good dudes testing with. We've got them everywhere. We've got them on the East Coast. We've got them here in the Midwest.
Yeah,
Canada.
It's definitely awesome.
That guy, he's tearing up the standard. Our Canadian is tearing up the standard.
Yes, he is.
Online format right now. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I started. It was kind of just like one day I got a message rolled into my inbox, and I said, if you're in it, I'm in it too. I'm a big supporter of Francesco and everything he does, and
yeah, definitely.
I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, as am I, and again, this podcast is sponsored by Solitary Pro, as am I. So I'm definitely excited to be taken under the wing and get to work with Fran and all the other players. I mean, there's. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a murderer's row of excellent players, really, yourself included. Yeah. So I'm honored to.
We're the most handsome bunch on the
right.
On the
yeah, right. Oh man.
Well, maybe not me, but personality counts too.
Right. So yeah, cool. Moving into the next thing? What are your goals? What is your goals for the rest of 2019 and moving into 2020 for Magic and for the team?
I want an open top 8.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I want. And
it feels so good. And it feels so good.
Yeah, and a lot of players are go a large portion of their career without getting that, and I just want to get to that next level.
I hear you.
I've been in the competitive scene for a long time, and I finally feel like I have an outlet to optimize my ideas and share my ideas and really fine-tune my lists, my deck choices with some other experienced players. I think that honestly makes a big difference. You see all these players like Benjamin Nicolage, Ellie Cassis. I mean, Ellie Cassis has always been great, but
sure.
They all have this support system. Metagame Gurus. Remember Metagame Gurus? Those guys were maniacs back in the day. Yeah. Team BCW.
That's what
Jim
I was
Davis,
actually going to ask you, which kind of goes into that, is what is your... How do I word this? I guess, what's the biggest difference between being like a solo player versus being on a team and having all those excellent resources at your disposal?
It's really just it makes all the difference in the world. Like whenever you're left alone, and I really think that there's a fine line, right? Because
Sure.
it's really good to be an independent player, and it's really good to have a team, but it's also really important to know when to trust yourself, and when to pull rank
Sure.
and know, say, what, I have enough experience to make this call, and a lot of people, 20 to 30% roughly of a deck choice is knowing how you like to play your Magic and knowing
Yeah.
what your strengths are. And sometimes sideboards cards like, oh yeah, dude, play Rest in Peace, play Leyline of the Void. But if you have a better experience with other cards, then roll with those because
Agreed.
you know how they work. And
excellent view on that because Surgical Extraction is a card that I'm not a huge fan of. I know Hogak is everywhere. I just can't. I can't bring myself to put it in the main deck. I know it might strictly be wrong right now to not have it in the main deck, but I just cannot do it. To your point, like, you have to construct. You can't just rip. And I said this in the very first episode, in the introduction episode of the Control Freak. You can't just rip 75 cards off of the latest GP or the latest SCG and expect to do well at next week's PTQ or MCQ or whatever. Like, you have to get some games in and really think about your play style, right? Like,
you really got to think about how you want to play your Magic. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people lose sight of that. A lot of people step out of their comfort zones and get punished for it.
Yeah.
They're like, well, my friend, this guy did well with this card, but I hate this card, but oh well, I'm going to run with it, kind of attitude. And I'd like to mention my article that I just finished writing.
Yeah, plug it.
It talks all about those kind of decisions, diversifying your sideboard, using differential hate, differential in combination, using supplemental card choices that accent other game plans and aren't just so narrow. A lot of people use Rest in Peace. I think would you agree that a lot of people refer to Rest in Peace as a narrow sideboard card?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
I mean, a lot of people think that it has all these like iffy matchups, right? Like, oh yeah, Jund has
I think Jund is now an absolute. You bring Rest in Peace in with Ren and 6 and Summer Play and Season Pyromancer, and with of course Tarmogoyf has always been there. But I think it's. Do you agree or?
It's tough. It's tough, right? Because before it was strictly just a wrong play, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people made that mistake. With the addition of Ren and 6. There's a lot more merit for a card like Rest in Peace.
Sure.
But in my article, it talks exactly about why you don't bring in Rest in Peace, and it's closer than it sounds, but it depends on what side of the ball you want to play on. Does that make sense? Like,
well, obviously you gotta shave some amount of Snapcaster Mages, which is arguably the best card in the deck. So.
Yeah, and that's the drawback, right? So you just want in that matchup, you got to think about it from the Jund's point of view. Jund's trying to 1-for-1 you, and trying to trade resources with you, and then generate a small to moderate amount of card advantage, and just beat you with superior top decks. Yep. Put a clock on you, beat you with superior top decks, and I can't tell how many times one draw has mattered against Jund.
Oh yeah.
And that draw sometimes is Rest in Peace, and then you die.
That's very fair.
And that's really
draw a late game. You just it often comes down.
If you pack full of 4 of them, that's
oh no, I don't think I never think to bring all 4 of them in. I would say two at most. If you're going to go down that rabbit hole, it's 2 at most. But just because the power of Snapcaster Mage is too great.
Yeah, and I think that in my article it talks a lot about using that balanced scale and reasoning. So I go through a couple matchups. I go through Jund, and I talk about just the generalized bare bones game plan. I was talking about the 1-for-1, using really versatile removal spells, and then they just put a clock on you. So in a general sense, we in the analysis portion we highlight just kind of exactly what the deck is trying to do. Not really mentioning cards, not really mentioning any threats, but just saying this is what they're trying to do to you.
Yeah.
And then it goes a little deeper. It talks about hits the hot cards, hits Wrenn and Six, hits the Tarmogoyf and Scavenging Ooze,
Sure.
And we talk about the high impact cards, Bloodbraid Elf, Tireless Tracker, Wrenn and Six is a house,
Yeah, those are all must answers.
And so I talk a lot about which side of the court you're trying to play on. Yeah. And I'm team play 4 Snapcasters and 3 Celestial Purge and just get it done.
Yeah.
I talk about how you look at a card and analyze what percentage of the deck this card answers, and Celestial Purge against Jund is quite good.
Excellent, yes. I agree.
So you're rarely going to find a spot where you get Celestial Purge on top of your deck and you can't just point it directly at the thing that they care about.
Right.
So, and you're kind of leaning into playing their game. And then I go a little deeper and I talk about traps, sideboarding traps, pitfalls to sideboarding. You can.
Do you want to share just a little snippet of it? I don't want you to give away the entire article because I do want people to go and read it, but
I get carried away. I get excited.
I gotta kind of ring you back in,
Rein me in here.
Yeah, but yeah, if you want to, just one example of a pitfall that players might. You already kind of mentioned one is rest in peace, but.
Yeah, we talk about rest in peace and why you're trying to balance your deck in a way that is consistent.
Sure.
A wise player once told me that when you're sideboarding, you shouldn't focus on X cards coming in, X cards coming out. You really want to focus on what you want your deck to look like post board. Sure. And that may seem like duh,
well,
of course, but it holds more wisdom in that sentence than it first appears at face value. Yeah.
No, because a lot of newer competitive players, and maybe even more not so newer competitive players, like sideboarding is hard. It is one of the hardest parts of Magic.
Especially in blue-white decks.
Yeah, and so if you sideboard wrong, you could just completely knock off the whole ebb and flow of the deck, right?
Yeah, you can just completely throw the deck off kilter.
I think with Narset, I think if you're bringing in so for example, I played an IQ, went 3-1-1, didn't make top 8, was the only 10 pointer that didn't make top 8. I'm not salty about it. You're salty about it. Shut up. Anyways,
you deserve it just like everybody. I got 2 9th places in a row at IQs before I got this top 8. So
yeah,
it feels bad. It burns. But, it's like wet fire.
Yeah, but so I was playing 2 Monastery Mentors. I was playing Baneslayer Angel and a Restoration Angel because I had Wall of Omens, which Wall of Omens is great right now. I suggest people play it if you're going to play some Restos in your board. But anytime I would bring all of those creatures in, I would shave down my number of Narsets because it bricks. And we talked about this in the team chat, and which is ultimately what got me to do that, take that philosophy. But that's one of the nuances of sideboarding that a newer, competitive player, whether you're playing control or whatever deck you're playing, but specifically for control, you need to know those little nuances. You can't just look at a sideboard guide and be like, okay, just do this thing. You have to know the reasons behind the things that
you can't just be like, these 5 cards are good, these 5 cards are bad.
Right. Which is what Magic players love to say. Is you bring in the good cards, you take out the bad cards. It's it's not that easy. Yeah, exactly.
And you brought up a really interesting point, which kind of showcases exactly what an experienced control player needs to be thinking about. Whenever you talk about Restos, and you spoke eloquently in a way that it was second nature to you. It made sense to you. You didn't have to. Nobody had to explain to you why. You said, yeah, Wall of Omens is good when you have restoration sideboard.
Yeah.
Wall or Narset is bad when you have a higher density of creatures. Yes. And so there's these, you have this balance that you have to approach every sideboarded game with. And for example, with the Wall of Omens, sometimes you want Wall of Omens, but you don't want Restoration Angel.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Sure. It's obviously
sometimes
Wall of Oh, sorry.
Like
I was just going to say, against
okay.
Burn and like Mono Red Prowess, Wall of Omens is a house.
It is. It's absolutely.
It is like one of the best cards in that matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's a huge. It's
even good against Hogak, which hopefully when this episode goes live will no longer be a problem. But
right.
if it happens to
hopefully.
be, geez, I don't know what I'm going to do if they don't do something about that. That actually pivots us kind of perfectly into the final topic that we wanted to talk about. And I don't want to touch on it too much just because this episode is
Everybody's
going
tired
live.
of hearing the Hogak.
Well, yeah, definitely. Everyone is fed up with Hogak, but specifically because we're recording this before the banning, we don't have the information. We don't know exactly what was banned in the future. Recording podcasts are weird, So I got to put you on the spot. What do you think is going to get banned and why? I did the same thing to Neo, too. I did the same thing to Francesco. So
we'll compare.
Yeah, we got to compare notes.
So,
yeah.
It depends on what WotC thinks for future design space, right? So the reason why they didn't just chop the head off the Hydra right off the bat, and just nailing Hogak, not banning Hogak was for a couple of reasons. So the first reason, I believe, was because they just printed the card. They don't feel like a new card that they feel is balanced.
Yes.
By the way, Tom Ross,
he created
this is all your
right?
fault.
It was his baby, right?
Good guy, but no, not his fault. But they didn't feel the need to lose out on a card they just printed and is testing out in a design space. It's definitely an interesting card text. It is a very powerful card, but it has enablers in Modern that are just a lot more consistent than I think they originally planned. No one person is smarter than the Magic community. Every time you print a card, there's some guy in a basement just like flipping through Gatherer trying to find some busted bullshit to do with it.
Right.
So, with that in mind, I don't think I'm going to go ahead and battle them and say they're not going to ban Hogak itself.
Oh, wow. That is not what I thought you'd say. And for those listening, we did talk about this, but we didn't share exactly what we think each of us were going to say, just for the listeners and the viewers.
So, people
this
are probably
like
going to hang in the street for this.
Yeah.
To get their torches and pitchforks.
Right.
I have a tender butt, so go ahead and give me a couple prods, I guess. But I really, it just really depends on what WotC thinks for the future. So if WotC wants the design space to flourish and see where Hogak goes further, obviously that was the reason why they banned Bridge from Below. They said it in their BNR announcement.
Yeah.
They feel like Bridge from Below has a greater potential of creating issues with design in the future. So if you ban Hogak now and they print some other thing later that combos with Bridge Below, then you have the same issue, just with a different engine.
Yeah, it's kind of the same reason as the reason they gave on Birthing Pod, just because it restricts what they can really, the power level of creatures, ETB effects, things like that. So, yeah.
So I have a 4-tier opinion of what I think they might ban. So I'm gonna start with the beginning, at the end of the spectrum, saying which card I feel like is less likely to get banned of the possible chatter that's been going on, and that card's Faith of Slitting. A lot of people cry about Faith of Slitting. Get over it. It's not going anywhere.
I agree.
WotC has proven that many times. Um, so, and then secondly, the one, but it'd probably have to be Hogak. I feel like Hogak. If WotC just wants to like get it done and just kill it with fire before it spreads, Hogak might be the ban. I think that's probably more on the unlikely side, but I can see it happening. And then
before you say what you think is going to get banned, let me say I do think they will ban Hogak, just because of what Mark Rosewater said on his Tumblr account, and take that for what it's worth. But he does answer a lot of community questions on there, and they asked him what was the biggest mistake recently, and he actually said a hybrid green-black card. So that's what leads me to believe it, because I was totally on the train last BNR that they weren't going to ban Hogak because they were trying to sell packs, like to harken back to your example and your reasoning earlier. They're trying to sell these packs.
Right.
They just made the card. They want to see it try and see Modern pivot and adjust around it. But at this point, I personally think it's just aim for the head, guys. Like let's get this done.
Aim for the head. and that might be what they do, because they didn't learn the first time, is what a lot of people's opinion of it is. Sorry, I had to find a charger. My laptop was about to die, so I didn't want to. Hogak is definitely a reasonable ask for a ban.
Yeah. So what's yours? What do you think is going to actually get the old axe?
So I think that my middle two picks are a ban close together. So okay. my second most likely ban is going to have to be Carrion Feeder.
Okay.
I feel okay. So, and you got to work with me on this, right? Because you have to kind of get in my mindset. If WotC wants to keep the Hogak menace around,
right,
but kind of wants to neuter its consistency, Carrion Feeder might be the hit. This is probably a pretty hot take. By hot take, I mean probably hot dumpster fire. So this is probably looking way too into it. But the Carrion Feeder provides some excruciatingly painful consistency to the deck. It adds some really unnecessary dynamics to the deck that I don't feel like the deck should have.
Like being able to sacrifice a Hogak or literally any of the creatures when you point a Path to Exile at it is so annoying.
Yeah,
so I hear where you're coming from.
It just seems like something that an unreasonable piece of interaction that I don't feel like a deck that degenerate should have.
Right.
And so that's
I can see
so that's
argument.
kind of my hot take. Like you can have a hot fast turn with a turn 2 Hogak, but it gets pathed on the spot. What are you doing from there?
Right.
You know.
Right.
Then you got the Vengevine plays, and you got the other busted shit that the deck can do. But the point is that if you have the path, you're not you can't get punished for it. You know. Right. You can't. You have Carrion Feeder. You don't want to path this Carrion Feeder. The other reason why is Carrion Feeder is good is because it is an absolute terror in combat. There are so many things you can do in combat that just make that card absolutely busted. For example, I saw a lot of Tron players in the MCQ try to block a creature with their Wormcoil Engine, and then they just get cloud shifted, basically. Just sack their creature in response, deny the life gain, and then just kill them through a 6/6 life-linking beast of a card that's been tearing up Modern for years now, and you just made it look like lunch meat,
Right.
So that's a big problem, especially when you can loop it with Gravecrawler. Just like Ren and 6. Ren and 6 is super busted, and it's probably going to get banned in Legacy in the future. It's just Deathrite Shaman 2.0.
It's all over the place, yeah.
it's literally Deathrite Shaman 2.0 in my opinion, but that's for another time. But
Yeah,
it's just like that. It's good in all phases of the game. It's good threat, it's good interaction, and it's a good plan B.
definitely.
And it's just unreasonable for a card that comes down on turn one to have that amount of power over how a game turns out. And so
Definitely.
for that reason, I think that and the fact that it's a zombie is also really stupid. So
yeah, it brings back Gravecrawler. Yeah.
every time they're like, dude, Tony, what's your pick for a ban? I'm like, I don't know. They could probably ban Carrion Feeder, and everybody looks at me like I'm stupid. I was like, dude, think about it.
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
after that reasoning,
it's
I can definitely understand. It's got way more applications than just against blue white too, because typically we're not really blocking. I mean, maybe if we're pathing and blocking, or if you're playing Wall of Omens, but typically against blue white we're not blocking too much. But against other decks, absolutely. Against humans, I could see that being a big problem, like you said. Against Tron, that could definitely be a big issue. So with all that, definitely think it's possible.
It's definitely a possible pick, but it's probably one of my less popular opinions among my peers. Another, I've noticed, if you guys reference my MCQ top 8 deck list, it'll be posted in the article. Should be up sometime next week.
I can put the list. You send me the list, and we'll get it in the show notes as well. So
okay, works for me.
Yeah,
I'm playing 2 copies of Terminus in my sideboard.
Yeah. Gotta get Hogak, right?
Yeah, and that it talks forever and ever about Terminus in my article. But long story short, I hated For Rest in Peace, and I wanted to kind of diversify my sideboard and get some sweepers in there that were pretty good against other decks as well, like humans. And surprisingly, Mono Red Phoenix cares about Terminus. A lot of people look at me like I'm stupid when it comes to that, but it's actually saved me a lot of games. But what's the one card in Hogak that makes them not care about Terminus?
Carrion Feeder.
Carrion Feeder, exactly. So the card just provides unnecessary modes of interaction, and for that reason is why it's my second pick. So my first pick, this is my most likely.
There we go.
Okay. So my first pick is going to be Stitcher Supplier.
Okay, yeah, I could. That's 6 cards in a bin,
Yep, it's Stitcher Supplier, and nobody needs Stitcher Supplier and Seder Wayfinder. Seder Wayfinder is basically Seething Song for Hogak.
Yeah.
Not great, not good for us.
That is true.
So Stitcher Supplier provides a meaningful. It does have a relevant card text creature type zombie, so it does really well with your grave crawlers, as does Carrion Feeder. And when it ETBs and when it, I'm not if it leaves or dies. I think it die. If it dies,
I think it's dies.
You mill 3 cards, right?
Yep.
So this is a pretty fast dredge engine for the deck, and I can see it being a hit for a couple reasons. Big reason is it enables the turn 2 Dredgevine, the Vengevine plays, which Vengevine is actually low key really scary.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
I feel like, and when you get turn 2 Hogak, and then when you deal with the Hogak, and they're like, all right, two dudes, 8 you go, like it's insane.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also an elemental, a green elemental, so it doesn't line up well with Celestial Purge, with the blue-eyed control deck, unlike literally the rest of their threats.
The rest of the deck.
So it's pretty annoying, and so prioritizing your 1-for-1 spells against them is actually pretty important. So Stitcher Supplier would probably be my number one pick. I think
Okay.
is one of
We're locking it in. You're on the record. You are on wax right now.
I am on wax.
You're
dog.
on wax saying that it's going to be Stitcher Supplier. We'll see.
I was correct. I was correct with the last one when they banned Bridge from Below.
Bridge, yeah,
a lot of people were thinking they were going to hit the looting, and I said Bridge from Below. But I think that was a little bit.
I don't think looting's ever really going away.
I don't think looting is ever going to leave the format. I think that there are a lot of. There's a difference between having a truly busted mechanic or entity in a modern format and just crybabies.
That's a big. I mean, you got those folks on Twitter that really, they're really very vocal, very vocal about wanting certain things banned, and even in other formats like standard, it's pretty abysmal. I don't even want to have to deal with like standard Twitter because they're always shouting for bans in that format. So
yeah, ban versus or ban scape shift, right? Is that the craze? And
I think so.
In standard right now,
Field of the Dead, yeah.
Yeah, Field of the Dead.
Yeah.
And that is a pretty crazy
that card is
interaction to have in standard. I have to agree.
It's only
but,
for a couple months, whatever.
Yeah, it's whatever. Just counter it. What are you guys doing?
What are you guys doing? Oh wait, they have it to Fairy too. Jesus Christ. Okay,
yeah,
maybe it might be busted.
Instant speed scape shift.
Right. Oh God, yeah, it's true. That's so true. Okay. Yeah. So you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks. And you already know because the BNR has been posted at this point. Carrion Feeder has been banned. I can say.
I can't wait for people to tell me that I'm wrong.
Oh man. Okay, so do you have any? Oh, go on.
No, I'm saying I don't. I really don't know what they're gonna ban at this point. It could go. Yeah. It's anybody's ball game.
It really is.
But I will say this. I definitely think that there's gonna be a ban of some kind.
That is a hot take.
That's
there, Tony.
I can't lose with that one. I can't lose with that statement.
You're not wrong. So awesome. Thanks for your time, getting inside the mind, getting your old school, how you started playing, all that stuff, how you became a solitary pro member, all of your Magic accomplishments and your future goals, and of course talking banning predictions. It's been a pleasure, my friend. Do you have any ways for people to get a hold of you on the internet? If you want to give those shout outs and all that housekeeping.
Sure. My Twitter handle is below my name there, Juggernautica41. I communicate a lot through Facebook with a lot of the avid control players in the Blue Eye Control group.
You're in the group,
me here and there about stuff. Yep, right. I'm definitely in the group. I'm pretty heavily involved in the group.
You're
so if there's any questions, you guys have about control, I'd be happy to do my best to help you answer them.
Definitely.
I'm going to be venturing a new deck archetype that I feel like I need to have in my wheelhouse coming up soon.
Awesome.
Gonna be playing some Urza.
Oh, nice.
So.
Yeah, that
I'm always gonna keep my blue-white deck on deck though.
Oh yeah.
So, I just want to see how Urza fares in the new meta. It's looking like it's gonna be pretty busted. So, I kind of want a deck that I can kind of audible to when I don't want to take 45 minutes exactly to kill my opponent.
I hear that.
But I rarely don't want to do that because I like seeing people in pain. So
yeah.
When
you win with blue-white, you win hard, right?
Yeah, it's never like a close match. It's like just it's just always just like this crushing sadness when you triple stone rain with Jace the Mind Sculptor and Teferi Emblem.
Yeah. Cool. Are there any upcoming events that you're going to that people might be able to catch up with yet?
I think that I plan on going to Dallas at the end of this month.
Yeah, same. I'll be there. Hopefully my jersey is in my hands by then. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. We'll see. No promises, right?
Yeah.
I think that I plan on going to Philadelphia in October.
Awesome.
And
do an indie?
I think there's another one coming up in Indianapolis next month.
The SCG or the Team GP? or both?
I believe it's the SCG, but they all run together these days. So
They really do.
um,
Awesome.
so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so catch Tony at all of those events if you want to, kind of pick his brain about blue white, or maybe at that point Grixis Urza. But yeah, everybody, this is.
I'll probably still be on blue white. To be honest with you, it's pretty hard to deter me at this point.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Every time I think about maybe setting it down, I win some big event. So I just I think that I got to go with. It's also just a super fun deck to play. So
you gotta ride with the horse that got you to the dance, right?
Yeah, you just gotta really you gotta stay true to your roots and know why you're here. And blue white control is obviously. If you guys have never played the deck before, a big tip with playing blue white control is if you really want to feel like you're in control of your match results, it's a great deck to have. It rewards experienced players quite just like any other modern deck, but
right.
It definitely has a whole dimension of interactivity to it that a lot of decks don't get. So
yeah.
If you like having a little bit of a little bit more control over your results, sometimes it's a good deck to try and grind.
Absolutely, awesome. Well, again, thanks for the time. It's been a blast. We talked about pretty much everything. I think covered it all. But yeah, the housekeeping stuff for the podcast. As always, you can check out the Control Freak podcast on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and all of the other podcast apps, as well as Twitch and YouTube. So make sure to follow and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. And make sure to go on over to Apple Podcasts and give me a 5-star review. Say a couple kind words. It really does go an extremely long way with helping out the podcast. And a big shout out to the sponsor of the show and me, Team Solitary Pro. Appreciate you. We're going to be doing more of these Solitary Spotlight episodes heading into the future episodes, so definitely a huge shout out to them. And yeah, other than that, everybody, appreciate you tuning in or listening either way. And remember, Magic players, be kind to one another. Have a great night.